Hey, Composer Gloves here. I'm wearing a hat. Today we're going to be looking at filler elements or creating the atmosphere in your track. So in Big Room, a big part of this is the reverb. So if we go over here to the horn hit drop that I showed you in the last one. Something that's really important. Now it's not mixed, so there's like things covering other things, and that's fine for now. But something that's really important is the horn hits reverb and this pluck hits reverb, not just from this is a lead standpoint, but from this is the atmosphere of the track. If those things weren't there, it would sound way more dead. So if we were to remove this, though, we're left with what we could also reasonably consider the atmosphere without our lead. So this is the stuff that should just jive, should not get in the way of our main idea, our main content. So I have a sub bass and a riser, and also a kick. So the riser would typically show up near the end when you're getting ready to transition into a new element. So I'm going to go ahead and mute that guy. But other than that, this is what's jiving. Now the kick sounds pretty aggressive in this scenario. It fits in on some other parts, but right here, it does not sound that great. So that's something I'd probably want to change. But you get the idea. It pulses with the sub bass, and that's all that it is. I listen to some drops, and sometimes they'll layer in a clap too. So they'll get a clap going. Maybe it'll do this for a bit, and they'll add the clap. I consider those atmospheric elements or layer elements that contribute to the feeling or spatial positioning of a track. So not necessarily like panning, like, whoa, where is it spatially, but like location-wise, like where am I? And I mean, if that kind of makes sense. So it's like to the left or to the right versus am I in a canyon or am I, in my room? So this is part of what makes the Big Room sound like the Big Room, is having these elements correctly. And we rely a lot on the big sound from these sounds, which is totally fine. That's what this kind of a drop calls for. But if we go over here to another style, we'll take out the 3 melodic elements here and listen to everything else that's going on. So this is the stuff that should not be pulling our attention, but should in some way contribute to the main content that's going on. So we see that we just have these lines that, I mean, it's just what it is. And we're putting things together in a way that they form a vibe, they form a groove, and we are ready to accept some things to go on top. We've built up a little pyramid of atmosphere, of a foundation for our track to lay on some more complex elements that we can now digest. And so if we add in everything. Now, our mixing is not that great. I could improve this a ton just by doing just a couple stereo moves would make this a billion times better. But the point is, I want to show you this stuff while it's still kind of raw, because this is when you're working. Typically, you're going to wind up with stuff sounding like this, because I like to approach my mixing a little bit separately, and I'll do stuff as I go as needed. But you can see that we can achieve a really cool vibe, and it does not take away from the leads. Like our eyes are still very much on the leads. And the same thing goes throughout the whole thing in this case. Now, a couple other elements you may consider doing is taking several atmospheric elements and then automating them on and off to create variation and space in your track. So what I'm talking about is if we were to get several pads, you could record some pads, but I'm just going to go ahead and grab some sounds from the Black Octopus Leviathan, because that's the one, I know this one the best by far. They have these Atmos sounds in here, atmospheres. And what you can do is you can grab like a bunch of them, and I grabbed 2 of those. Okay, so you grab a bunch of them and they all start at 0, and while your track is going, you automate them on and off. Now these are all in different keys, so I'd want to take care to make sure they're in the same key. But what we're going to do is we're going to take it, we're going to automate each one's volume. So volume, 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 right? And what you do is you just bring them up and down like so. So there's one. That's going to be pretty loud. Take that down. And so these will just be in the background, and it will create an atmosphere for our track. This could be a very bad idea just because I didn't pay attention to the notes and stuff. But some of this, they're mostly atmospheric, so they're not super dependent on tones sometimes. So you see, you can see where parts, this moment right here is not really being enhanced. So I might take that away. But these other ones, they actually did some pretty cool stuff that I was like, hey, and it adds just an extra level of dynamic interest. Now you're going to want stuff that vibes with whatever feeling you're going after. So these are sort of a little, I don't know, creepy. I'm not sure if creepy is the right word, but they don't necessarily contribute to the vibe that's going on here. But having layers like this, like noise layers or stuff that's very popular, is very valuable. You could just put on really thick effects too and rely on reverb on elements to create this atmosphere throughout your track without having to do like that crazy stuff I was doing. But that's just the general idea. So that's a little bit about atmospheres and your sound. They definitely make it sound more interesting. And when you get into mixing, they give you a lot more options of interesting things to do. So you could like have it sit out on the side, come in mono, do some things, filter it differently. You can affect these sounds a ton and make it really interesting while not complicating your sounds, your regular sounds. And that's because on the volume scale of things, on the balance scale, the first thing you do in your mix is you set your balance. And when you look at these elements, they're going to be softer naturally. You don't want these things to be main focal points in your track, so they'll be softer. So they can be more interesting soft elements. That way, when someone's listening, they feel like there's some sort of organic texture to this. It's not stagnant. It doesn't stay the same, but at the same time, it's got a very easy to follow pulse. So like that would be dependent on how well you can write your drop. Anyways, if you have any questions, let me know. Subscribe and have a blessed day.